The quantum stabilizer hummed its familiar song as Soren Parker adjusted the final calibrations. The soft blue glow of the laboratory equipment cast dancing shadows across his tired face. At 32, he was young for a lead quantum physicist, but his breakthrough research in quantum entanglement had earned him this solitary night shift at the Princeton Advanced Research Facility. Just a few more minutes, he muttered, checking the readings on his tablet. The experiment had to be perfect. His theory about quantum bridges between parallel universes depended on it. The stabilizer's hum suddenly shifted pitch, rising to a whine that made his teeth ache. Soren glanced up from his tablet, frowning at the unexpected change. The quantum containment field shouldn't be able to. The air before him shimmered like heat waves rising from summer asphalt. His instruments went wild, readings spiking off the charts. Soren stumbled backward, knocking over his chair as reality itself seemed to fold inward. A figure stepped through the distortion. She was tall, easily 7 feet, with skin that seemed to shift between deep purple and midnight blue. Her eyes were entirely silver, no pupils or irises, yet somehow expressing both ancient wisdom and immediate concern. She wore what appeared to be liquid metal, flowing around her form like quicksilver. Dr. Soren Parker, she said, her voice resonating with harmonic undertones that made his chest vibrate. I am Nixis, quantum envoy of the Celestial Concordat. Your experiments have created a crisis that threatens multiple realities. Soren's scientific mind warred with his fight-or-flight response. He forced himself to breathe slowly, to observe and analyze rather than panic. How do you know my name? We've been monitoring your quantum research for months, Nixis replied, moving with liquid grace to examine his equipment. Your theories about quantum bridges are remarkably accurate, and therein lies the danger. You're very close to creating stable passages between dimensions, Dr. Parker. Too close. That's the goal, Soren managed, his voice steadier than he felt. Stable quantum tunneling could revolutionize everything from energy production to space travel. Nixis turned to face him, her silver eyes seeming to peer into his soul. It could also tear reality apart. We've seen it happen before, on countless worlds. The quantum fabric of space-time is more delicate than you realize. Each bridge creates microscopic fractures that spread exponentially. The implications hit Soren like a physical blow. Are you saying my research is causing actual damage to space-time? Not yet, Nixis said, touching one of his monitors with a 6-fingered hand. The readings instantly stabilized. But you're approaching a critical threshold. That's why I'm here. The Celestial Concordat has dealt with quantum crises for millennia. We've learned to detect civilizations on the brink of quantum disaster and intervene. Soren's scientific curiosity began to overcome his fear. The Celestial Concordat, it's some kind of intergalactic organization? More accurately, an interdimensional one, Nixis corrected. We operate across multiple realities, maintaining quantum stability. Your Earth exists at a crucial junction point between several major dimensional planes. A quantum catastrophe here could cascade across countless realities. Why appear to me directly? Soren asked, slowly approaching his equipment again. Why not contact world governments? Nixis's expression shifted subtly. Was that amusement? Would they believe us? Would they act quickly enough? No, Dr. Parker. You understand the science. You can verify our claims. And most importantly, you're the one whose work could trigger the catastrophe. You need to understand what's at stake. She gestured, and the air between them filled with holographic equations. His equations, but extended, developed, taken to their logical conclusions. Soren's eyes widened as he followed the math, seeing how his theoretical quantum bridges could indeed create expanding fractures in space-time. This is incredible, he breathed, both awed and horrified. But there must be a way to stabilize the quantum matrix to prevent the fractures from. A sharp alarm cut through the air. Nixis's head snapped toward the laboratory door. We have less time than I thought. Your colleagues are coming to check on the power surge my arrival caused. Wait, Soren said quickly. I have so many questions. If what you're showing me is true, we need to. I'll return tomorrow night, Nixis interrupted. Have your data ready. Review these equations. And Dr. Parker. Her silver eyes locked with his. Tell no one about me. The consequences of panic at this stage could be unfortunate. The air shimmered again, and she was gone, leaving Soren alone with his humming equipment and racing thoughts. He barely had time to straighten his knocked-over chair before Dr. Jasmine Reed, his research partner, burst into the lab. Soren, everything okay? We registered a massive power spike. He looked at his restored readings, all showing normal levels. Just a minor fluctuation, he heard himself say. I've got it under control. As Jasmine nodded and left, Soren sank into his chair, mind reeling. He pulled up his research data, seeing it with new eyes. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. He had a lot of math to verify before Nixus returned. In the darkness outside his laboratory window, stars twinkled innocently, giving no hint of the dimensional planes shifting invisibly around them, or the catastrophe that might be brewing in the quantum realm between realities. Soren Parker, who had always prided himself on pushing the boundaries of science, now faced a terrible question. What happens when pushing those boundaries threatens the very fabric of existence itself? Soren hadn't slept. How could he? After spending the entire night reviewing the equations Nixus had shown him, his mind was a tornado of quantum calculations and terrifying possibilities. The sun was now setting again, casting long shadows through his laboratory windows, and his colleague Jasmine had been giving him concerned looks all day. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, dropping a stack of research papers on his desk. Have you even left the lab since last night? Just needed to verify some calculations, he mumbled, rubbing his tired eyes. The equations still danced behind his eyelids, showing him exactly how his quantum bridge theory could fracture reality itself. Well, don't work too late tonight, Jasmine said, heading for the door. She paused, turning back. Oh, and the board wants preliminary results by next week. The military funding committee is getting impatient. Soren's stomach churned. Military funding. Of course they'd be interested in quantum bridges between dimensions. He waited until Jasmine's footsteps faded down the hallway before slumping in his chair. The ethical implications were staggering. The lab's quantum stabilizer suddenly hummed to life on its own. Soren sat up straight as the air shimmered, and this time 3 figures stepped through the dimensional distortion. Nixus was there, her liquid metal clothing rippling in the laboratory lights. Besides her stood a towering figure in what appeared to be crystalline armor, easily 8 feet tall, with angular features and eyes that glowed like distant stars. The third visitor was shorter, closer to human height, with iridescent skin that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. Dr. Parker, Nixus said, allow me to introduce Admiral Theron of the Quantum Defense Corps. She gestured to the tall figure. And this is Lyra, our empathic specialist. Admiral Theron's voice rumbled like distant thunder. Your equations are impressive, Dr. Parker. Dangerously so. You've accomplished in months what takes most civilizations decades to discover. Which is precisely why we're concerned, Lyra added, her voice melodious and soothing. I sense your dedication to knowledge, your pure scientific curiosity. But I also sense you understand the gravity of what we revealed yesterday. Soren nodded, still trying to process the presence of 3 interdimensional beings in his laboratory. I've been reviewing the mathematical proofs. The quantum fractures, they're like cracks in glass, aren't they? Each bridge creates microscopic breaks that spread and connect. An apt analogy, Theron said, moving to examine Soren's quantum stabilizer. Except these cracks spread across dimensions, weakening the barriers between realities. Once they begin, they're nearly impossible to stop. We've brought proof, Nixus said, producing what looked like a crystalline sphere. She set it on Soren's desk, and suddenly the air above it filled with 3-dimensional images, recordings from other worlds. Soren watched in horror as alien cities warped and twisted, reality itself seeming to tear apart at the seams. He saw beings of all descriptions fleeing as the very fabric of space-time unraveled around them. These civilizations, he whispered. Gone, Theron said grimly. Their quantum experiments reached critical mass. The dimensional barriers shattered. Entire realities collapsed. Lyra stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Soren's shoulder. He felt waves of calm emanating from her touch. We're not here to threaten or condemn, Dr. Parker. We're here to prevent a tragedy. The lab door suddenly burst open. Jasmine stood there, eyes wide, staring at the 3 alien beings. Soren? What the hell is this? Before anyone could move, she had pulled out her phone. Security. Lab 7. We have a breach. Nixus moved with impossible speed, her hand passing through Jasmine's phone, which immediately went dark. Dr. Reed. We were hoping to avoid this complication. Stay back. Jasmine backed toward the door, but Lyra was suddenly behind her, touching her temples lightly. Jasmine's eyes unfocused, then cleared. She will remember nothing of this, Lyra said softly. But we cannot keep erasing memories, Dr. Parker. We need your help, and we need it soon. Theron's crystalline armor clinked as he turned to face Soren. Your world's military is already investigating quantum tunneling weapons. We've detected preparations for tests that could trigger catastrophic quantum fractures within weeks. What? Soren felt the blood drain from his face. But my research isn't anywhere near weapons applications. Others have taken your theoretical framework further than you know, Nixis said grimly. We need you to help us prevent those tests. And we need you to modify your equations, find a way to stabilize quantum tunneling without causing dimensional fractures. Soren looked at Jasmine, slumped unconscious in Lyra's arms. If what you're saying is true, why not just shut down our research completely? Stop us by force. Because quantum knowledge can't be contained forever, Theron rumbled. Your species will discover these principles eventually. Better to guide you towards safe applications now than risk catastrophic experiments later. And, Nixis added, because we believe you specifically have the insight we need. Your original approach to quantum bridging, there are elements we've never seen before. Elements that might lead to safe, stable quantum tunneling. Lyra had settled Jasmine gently in a chair, making it appear she had simply fallen asleep at her desk. We're offering a partnership, Dr. Parker. Help us prevent this crisis, and we'll help humanity safely enter the quantum age. Soren looked at his equations, at his life's work, seeing both its promise and its terrible potential. What do you need me to do? First, Nixis said, her silver eyes intense. You need to help us locate the military's quantum testing facility. We have less than 72 hours before they attempt their first dimensional breach. Outside the lab windows, night had fallen completely. Somewhere in the darkness, a clock was ticking toward disaster. Soren Parker, who had started this journey seeking scientific breakthrough, now found himself caught between dimensions, between duty and discovery, between salvation and catastrophe. He took a deep breath and turned to his new allies. Let's get to work. The first quantum rift appeared over Tokyo at dawn. Soren watched the news footage on his tablet, his hands shaking as the swirling vortex of distorted space-time pulsed above the city's skyline. Beside him, Nixis's liquid metal armor rippled with agitation. They've already started, she said, her harmonic voice tight with concern. The military's tests are creating instabilities faster than we predicted. They were in a makeshift command center Theron had established in an abandoned warehouse outside Princeton. Holographic displays showed similar anomalies forming over Moscow, Sydney, and Sao Paulo. Lyra moved between the screens, her iridescent skin dimming with each new report. The quantum fractures are spreading exponentially, Theron announced, his crystalline armor catching the light from the displays. Each rift is creating cascade effects through the dimensional barriers. Soren zoomed in on the Tokyo anomaly. Those energy signatures, they match exactly what my equations predicted for unstable quantum bridges. He turned to Nixis. But how did they weaponize the theory so quickly? Because they had help, a familiar voice said from the doorway. Jasmine Reed stood there, flanked by two men in dark military uniforms. Sorry, Soren. But some of us understand that quantum technology is too valuable to be regulated by aliens. Dr. Reed. Theron rumbled, straightening to his full height. You remember us, despite Lyra's interference. Jasmine smiled coldly. Quantum shielding. We've learned more than you know. She pulled out a small device that hummed with ominous energy. Now, step away from the equipment. All of you. You don't understand what you're dealing with, Nixis said, stepping forward. These rifts won't just create weapons. They'll tear reality apart. We understand perfectly, one of the military men said. What you call rifts, we call doorways. Instant access to any point in space-time. Imagine the strategic advantage. Soren's mind raced. Jasmine, look at the data. The fractures are growing faster than anyone could have predicted. Tokyo's rift has doubled in size just while we've been talking. The warehouse's holographic displays suddenly flickered. New alerts flashed as rifts began appearing over dozens more cities. The air itself seemed to crackle with quantum instability. Lyra gasped, her empathic senses overwhelmed. The fear. Millions of people. The rifts are feeding on their panic, creating psychic resonance that's accelerating the deterioration. Shut down the testing sites, Theron demanded. You still have a chance to contain this. No, Jasmine said. But her confidence wavered as she watched the proliferating anomalies. Our calculations show the rifts will stabilize once they reach critical mass. We can control them. Soren pulled up his original equations, overlaying them with real-time data from the rifts. Look, the fracture patterns exactly match the catastrophic cascade scenarios. This isn't about control anymore. It's about survival. The warehouse shuddered as a new rift formed directly overhead. Through its swirling vortex, they could see impossible geometries and fragments of other dimensions bleeding through. The dimensional barriers are collapsing, Nixis announced. We have hours, maybe less, before the damage becomes irreversible. One of the military men raised a weapon, but Theron moved with surprising speed for his size. A burst of crystalline energy knocked the weapon away. In the confusion, Lyra touched Jasmine's temples again, this time maintaining contact longer. Oh God, Jasmine whispered as the mental blocks fell away. What have we done? The testing sites, there are 7 of them. Here are the coordinates. Soren was already feeding the locations into their quantum tracking system. We need to split up. Hit all 7 sites simultaneously, or the feedback loop will tear the rifts wide open. Agreed, Theron said. But Dr. Parker, you're not coming with us. You need to stay here and solve the larger problem. What larger problem? Nixis placed a hand on his shoulder. Even if we shut down the sites, the rifts are self-sustaining now. We need your insight, that unique perspective that led you to quantum bridging in the first place. Find us a way to close the rifts without collapsing the dimensions they connect. The warehouse rocked with another dimensional tremor. Through the windows, they could see more rifts forming across the horizon, reality fracturing like broken glass. How long do I have? Soren asked. 3 hours, Theron said grimly. After that, the cascade effect becomes unstoppable. Lyra helped a shaken Jasmine to a chair. I'll stay to help. My empathic abilities might provide insight into the quantum resonance patterns. Nixis's liquid metal armor formed into more tactical configurations. The rest of us will split into teams. Dr. Reed, you'll guide us to the testing sites. Your quantum shielding knowledge might be crucial. Take my latest stabilizer prototype, Soren said, handing Nixis a device from his lab. It's not much, but it might buy us some time. The air rippled as Theron opened quantum portals to their destinations. As the teams prepared to leave, Nixis turned back to Soren one last time. Remember what you told me about quantum entanglement? How particles mirror each other across space and time. Her silver eyes met his. Find the mirror, Dr. Parker. Find the resonance that binds reality together. Then they were gone, leaving Soren and Lyra surrounded by holographic displays showing a world slowly tearing itself apart. Outside, the sky was filled with quantum rifts, each one a window into dimensional chaos. Soren looked at his equations, at the swirling patterns of reality breaking down, and suddenly saw something he'd missed before. Lyra, he said quietly, I need you to tell me exactly what you feel when you look into the rifts. The answer isn't in the math, it's in the connections. Above them, reality continued to fracture, and time was running out. Lyra's iridescent skin pulsed with reflected quantum energy as she stared into the nearest rift. The rifts, they're not just tears in space-time. They're living things, in a way. They respond to consciousness, to emotion. Soren furiously updated his equations based on her input. The holographic displays around them showed Nixis, Theron, and their teams approaching the testing sites worldwide. But something about Lyra's words triggered a memory. Living things, he muttered. Of course, quantum entanglement isn't just about particle pairs. It's about relationships, patterns of connection. He pulled up his original research. We've been thinking about dimensional barriers as walls, but they're more like membranes. Living membranes. A massive tremor shook the warehouse. Through their communications link, Theron's voice crackled. First testing site secured. But the rifts aren't closing, they're merging. The displays showed it happening. Rifts colliding and combining into larger tears in reality. Through them, Soren could see fragments of other worlds, other dimensions bleeding through. Lyra, he said suddenly, can you sense anything familiar in those other dimensions? Any patterns that resonate with our reality? She closed her eyes, extending her empathic senses. Yes, like echoes. The same fundamental frequencies, just shifted. Different harmonies of the same song. The third side is down, Nixis reported through the link. But we're losing containment on the others. The quantum cascade is accelerating. Soren's fingers flew over the holographic controls. Because we're fighting the wrong battle. We need to go through to understand. Lyra, help me establish a stable portal using the warehouse's quantum field generators. Through. She opened her eyes. You want to enter a rift? The dimensional stress could tear you apart. Not with your empathic shielding, he said, already calibrating the equipment. You can help me maintain quantum coherence. And we need to understand what's on the other side if we're going to save both our reality and theirs. The warehouse's generators hummed to life, creating a controlled quantum tunnel just as Jasmine's voice came through the link. Fifth site neutralized. But the rifts are starting to affect Earth's magnetic field. Global communications are failing. Soren looked at Lyra. Ready? She nodded, taking his hand. Her iridescent skin began to glow brighter, extending its radiance around them both. Together, they stepped into the quantum tunnel. The transition was like being turned inside out while remaining perfectly still. Colors that had no names flowed around them. Realities flickered past like pages in a book being riffled. They emerged into a world that was almost, but not quite, Earth. The sky was a deep violet, and crystalline structures rose where cities should be. But the mathematical patterns, the underlying quantum frequencies, they were foundations Soren recognized. This is amazing, he breathed. The dimensional barriers aren't walls, they're filters, sorting realities into compatible frequencies. And we're disrupting that sorting with our quantum bridges. Through their link, they heard Theron, final testing site secured, but the rifts are now self-sustaining. Whatever you're doing, do it fast. Lyra's empathic senses extended through the alien landscape. The people here, they're terrified too. Their reality is breaking down just like ours. Soren studied the quantum readings from his portable scanner. Look at these patterns. Every dimension we're connected to has the same basic quantum signature, just phase-shifted. If we could synchronize those phases. A violent tremor knocked them off their feet. Above, the violet sky was tearing open, showing the same chaotic dimensional bleeding they'd seen on Earth. Synchronize them how? Lyra helped him up, her empathic shield flickering with strain. The quantum stabilizer prototype I gave Nixis, Soren said, his mind racing. If we modify it to act as a resonance tuner instead of a barrier. Nixis, are you receiving? Barely. Her harmonic voice crackled through static. The dimensional barriers are becoming critically unstable. The stabilizer, we need to reverse its polarity. Don't try to contain the rifts. Try to harmonize them. Match their quantum frequencies to their nearest dimensional neighbors. There was a pause filled with static. Then, explain quickly, Dr. Parker. Reality won't wait. As Soren outlined his theory, Lyra suddenly gripped his arm. More rifts are opening. We need to get back. He nodded, but took one last look at this almost Earth, this proof that reality was more fluid, more interconnected than anyone had imagined. Then Lyra's empathic shield enveloped them both, and they stepped back through their quantum tunnel. They emerged into chaos. The warehouse was half destroyed, reality itself seeming to blur around its edges. But Soren immediately ran to the quantum controls, transmitting detailed modifications to every team. It's not about closing the rifts, he told them all. It's about teaching realities to coexist. Every dimension has its own quantum frequency. We just need to help them resonate instead of clash. As the teams worked to implement his changes, Lyra touched his shoulder. Look, she whispered. Through the warehouse's broken walls, they could see the rifts in the sky beginning to pulse in rhythm, their chaotic energies slowly, starting to synchronize. But would it be enough? And could they complete the quantum harmonization before reality itself shattered completely? The answers would come in the next hour, if they had that long. The quantum harmonization was working, but too slowly. Soren could see it in the data streaming across the remaining holographic displays. The rifts were synchronizing, but reality was unraveling faster than they could stabilize it. Status report, he called through the quantum link. Western Hemisphere rifts are starting to synchronize, Theron's voice crackled. But the dimensional stress is crushing our quantum stabilizers. Eastern sites reporting critical failure, Jasmine added. The harmonics aren't propagating fast enough. Nixis's voice cut through the chaos. Soren, the rifts aren't just linking dimensions anymore. They're linking times. I'm seeing temporal feedback loops forming. He glanced at Lyra, who nodded confirmation. The quantum frequencies are cascading through time as well as space, she said. Each dimension we synchronize creates new temporal resonances. Soren's mind raced. Time and space, past and future, all connected through quantum harmonics. Then he saw it, the one pattern underlying everything. Everyone, listen carefully, he said, pulling up his original quantum bridge equations. We've been trying to synchronize the rifts individually, but there's a master frequency. Every reality, every timeline, they're all harmonics of a single fundamental quantum resonance. His fingers flew across the holographic controls. Nixis, reconfigure your stabilizer to amplify frequency 0001. That's the base harmonic. Everyone else, modify your devices to resonate with that frequency. The stabilizers can't handle that kind of power, Jasmine protested. They don't need to, Soren said. They just need to start the cascade. Once enough rifts synchronize with the fundamental frequency, the rest will naturally follow. Lyra's empathic senses stretched to their limit. He's right. I can feel the patterns shifting, seeking harmony. Through the warehouse's shattered walls, they watched as the chaotic rifts in the sky began to pulse in unison. Each stabilizer that synced to the fundamental frequency caused nearby rifts to synchronize automatically, creating a spreading wave of quantum harmony. It's working, Theron reported. Dimensional stress is decreasing by 30%, 40%. But Soren saw the problem before anyone else. The power requirements are too high. The stabilizers are going to overload. Not if they have help, Nixis said. There was something final in her voice. My armor, it's quantum reactive. I can use it to amplify the resonance. Nixis, no. Theron's voice boomed. The energy discharge would destroy your quantum matrix. We don't have a choice, she replied calmly. Soren, initiate the final sequence. Lyra, prepare to shield the others. Before anyone could stop her, Nixis interfaced her liquid metal armor with the nearest stabilizer. Energy coursed through her form, making her glow like a newborn star. The effect was immediate. The quantum harmonization accelerated exponentially. Rifts across the globe synchronized in seconds rather than minutes. Reality itself seemed to take a deep breath and settle. Dimensional barriers stabilizing, Jasmine reported, awe in her voice. The rifts, they're not closing, but they're stable. Harmonic. Through the nearest rift, Soren could now see clearly into the other dimension, not as a torn invasion of reality, but as a window into another possibility. The violent energy was gone, replaced by a subtle, musical resonance. All sites reporting successful harmonization, Theron said. The quantum cascade has been contained. But Soren was already running. He found Nixis outside the warehouse, her liquid metal armor crystallized into a lattice of pure quantum energy. She looked at him with silver eyes that were beginning to fade. The equations were beautiful, she said softly. You saw the music in the mathematics. There has to be a way to save you, he started, but she shook her head. I'm not ending, she said. I'm transforming. My quantum matrix will become part of the harmonic structure, helping maintain the balance between dimensions. Her form was becoming translucent. Besides, now you know how to reach across realities safely. The celestial concordat will need a new quantum envoy. She smiled as her body dissolved into pure energy, merging with the quantum harmonics that now connected all realities. Her last words hung in the air. Keep watching the equations, Dr. Parker. The universe still has so many songs to teach us. 1 month later, Soren stood in his rebuilt laboratory, watching Lyra and Theron calibrate the new quantum harmonization equipment. Jasmine worked nearby, her military connections now dedicated to ensuring safe quantum research. Through a small, carefully maintained dimensional window, they could see other versions of Earth, other possibilities flowing like streams into the great river of reality. The quantum barriers remained distinct but permeable, like membranes allowing controlled exchange between worlds. The Concordat Council is impressed, Theron said. Your understanding of quantum harmonics has opened up entirely new possibilities for dimensional cooperation. Lyra smiled, her iridescent skin pulsing gently. And the empathic resonance patterns we discovered are helping us communicate across realities more effectively than ever. Soren nodded, but his eyes were drawn to the equations flowing across his screen. Hidden in the mathematics, he could still see Nixis's influence, the complex quantum harmonies that bound existence together. She had become part of that harmony, and through it, part of everything. He touched the dimensional window gently. Somewhere in the infinite layers of reality, quantum songs were playing, and he was learning to hear them all. Let's get back to work, he said. Reality isn't going to harmonize itself.